Welcome to another edition of the Joy Business Special with me, Norman Akwahi. Today we are at the office of UNICOF General Secretary. And what is the reason that brought us here? Simple. The Ghana Revenue Authority has written to the Executive Secretary of the Bankers Association talking about the charging of, taxing clothing allowance for all workers that are within the banking industry. And we're here to understand, because in that letter apparently there had been some prior engagement by UNICOF with GRA. We understand way back in 2011 there was a ruling by the GRA itself on this matter. We want to understand what the real issues are and what should be the way forward, because now that the GRA is saying they're going to tax these workers, we are told that it's 25% of the total amount that is supposed to be paid to these workers. We'll try and understand what the real issues are. What is the stand of UNICOF from the General Secretary of the union? Were you ever engaged as a union on this clothing allowance?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. We have never had any engagement with the GRA on this matter in respect of payment of taxation on clothing allowances. They themselves had rules in April 2017, among other things, giving us the opportunity, or giving the employers opportunity to pay clothing allowances without deducting taxes. And they stated reasons that the purpose is that the clothing must be used exclusively for the purposes of the work. And it also served as business promotions. And at the same time act that if it is reimbursable, we should submit receipts. So we are surprised that they themselves are coming back to ask that taxations be paid, or taxes be paid on the clothing allowance.
Okay, just to refer you, I think that they were very clear in this letter of theirs. It says that that as was agreed in earlier discussions, your members should start charging tax on clothing allowance with effect from January 2019. And then I think the point 2, which is very interesting, you just referred to it. It says that all issues relating to the above subject before January 1 that were outstanding are, supposed to. But this reimbursable issue you're talking about, I think they've stated it. However, in view of the misunderstanding surrounding the ruling, that, was given to UNICOF, an interpretation by members of your association, and that's how come they agreed. If you say reimbursable, what do you mean?
The reimbursable means that you submit receipt covering whatever amount that has been paid to you.
To the staff.
To the staff. But let me explain that the letter in reference is addressed to Association of Bankers. So as a union representing the workers in this sector had never been engaged. And we are also surprised that Bankers Association had also not engaged us. We rather engage the CEOs and the HRs of all our management companies to discuss this matter. We had 2 forums to discuss this matter, and we also engage the services of the tax experts to let GRA know that they themselves had ruled on this matter, and that had given us the opportunity to receive the clothing allowances without it being paid.
Okay, so tell me, when exactly was this ruling done? If you can just read some of the lines in this particular ruling you are referring to, and exactly what did they say? Because they kind of are saying that they have agreed with you as a union, and for that matter, it's a non-issue.
We are very surprised at that. This communication was from Ghana Revenue Authority, dated 7th April 2011. Image or clothing allowance. I quote, "Your appeal was based on the fact that the clothing was to boost the corporate image and business promotion of the company rather than the employee. So the emphasis here is on the company's image and business promotion rather than a benefit to the employee. On the basis of the fact that the employer requires employees to wear the prescribed attire with the risk of being sanctioned should they default, and in view of the importance, the corporate image and business interest of the employer seem to be linked with the demand, I uphold the appeal to confirm the provisions of Section 8, subsection 1D as a discharger or reimbursement by an employer of an expenditure incurred by that person on behalf of the employer that serves the proper business purposes of the employer. Indeed, earlier ruling was on the same basis, except that my understanding was that this was a regular monthly payment rather than a one-off payment.
So who signed this particular letter?
This particular letter was signed by Major Daniel S. Kwaku,
okay,
the former commissioner,
of the GRA.
You understand?
So you had gone to the kind of commission that they set up to appeal when there was an attempt in 2011 to charge this.
You are right. You are right. The union represented the company that presented the appeal. And as the union that organizes the members, we went to the commission and had this ruling. So we are surprised that we have never been engaged before they started engaging Bankers Association. And we also expect that the Association of Bankers must also engage the union, because we have made our point very clear to them that these are allowances that are non-taxable.
Yeah, because
by their own ruling.
Okay,
They also paid the clothing allowances to their employees without deducting taxes. So where are they now descending on the banks and other companies that are enjoying the same allowances? However, we are not adverse to any direction from the GRA. Mm-hmm. We are prepared to engage them through the Bankers Association to have this matter resolved and resolved amicably.
Are you then saying that the various banks should flout the directive from the GRA and they shouldn't pay the tax?
Yes, please. Yes, please. The union had advised all the banks that they shouldn't pay the taxes.
Are you not flouting?
We are not flouting it.
The laws of this country.
No, let me ask.
The powers have been vested in the president, vested in the finance ministry, putting those powers in the GRA.
The right thing must be done.
And we have laws in this country in terms of taxation. We need to be able to develop a nation.
We as law-abiding citizens and law-abiding union, we respect every law of this country. But the right thing must be done. You have ruled that we should not pay taxes on the clothing allowance. If for any reasons that you want us to pay, there's a need for us to engage. You cannot bypass acts, find a lean way of engaging the banking association. They don't pay. It is the employers that pay. And these are negotiable items. We have them in our collective agreement. So unilaterally, employers cannot decide to deduct taxes from our clothing allowances without engaging acts. So we want to engage the Bankers Association, we want to engage the GRA on this matter and have it resolved.
Where are you prepared to go with this issue? I mean, if the GRA decides that they become very adamant and says, look, we're charging you anyway.
We will escalate it to any highest level that we can have this matter heard properly.
And when you say any other highest place, where? Court?
We are ready.
Or go to Parliament and then talk to the Select Committee on Finance?
That is why I said we are ever ready to escalate this matter to any highest level that we feel deemed important. Other than that, we will advise ourselves as to what to do. The GRA had given tax relief to Abosokai spare part dealers. And because they realized that the banks are highly tax compliant, in every respect, we received this letter not even addressed to us.
Yes, to the Bankers Association.
To the Bankers Association.
Executive Secretary.
And we expect that the Bankers Association will engage us. Other than that, we would engage them. If they fail to engage us, we will engage them.
How long are you prepared to wait?
We are writing to them today. If they are ready, we can even meet them this morning, because this matter is very, very crucial and very, very important to us as a union and as employees in these banks.
Any idea the percentage they are hoping to tax of the clothing allowance? I mean,
it's 25%.
25%?
25%, a quarter of the allowance.
I see.
And you're expected to put on shoes, you're expected to put on better, you're expected to go to laundry. So if they take 25% out of it, they have taken everything.
Would you not then go to the various banks, the employers, and then tell them that, or why don't you up the money so that the value will still be the same?
No, it cannot be the same. It cannot be the same. The higher you earn, the more tax you pay. You understand? And the clothing allowance, it's not the allowance that the banks pay. They have other things to do. They have other cost centers. So if they should increase the allowances for the clothing, you realize that they'll be lacking behind in other sectors.
I can understand, but you see, the part of it that says that, as we discussed in relation to taxation of clothing allowance paid by members of your association, we wish to reiterate our position that clothing allowances, unless it is reimbursable, is a taxable allowance.
That's
unless it's reimbursable.
That is right.
Okay, so that if I work in Bank B, and throughout the whole year, I can prove that I bought this number of clothes. I had to go to, you talk about laundry. So let's say I went to laundry this number of times. And I bought this new shoes, because maybe we are supposed to wear black trousers, white shirt, black tie. And it must look neat at a particular level that the bank is looking at. If I can provide the receipts and then I am paid, the bank then, submits that to GRA, then that is not taxable. But you see, what is the practice in the industry as of today? By somewhere March, the whole year, it is boxed together and they say, okay, en bloc. Let's say an amount is paid to an employee. And so the GRA is looking at it and saying that, look, you know what? We're looking at what you're doing. How sure are we Mr. A is actually even going to buy the clothing you're talking about?
So that is why it must be used exclusively for the business. So the employer will not pay this money to you without necessarily ensuring that you buy the right attire and use the right attire. You'll be surprised that even the color of the material, the fabric, is determined by the employer. Even the style to be sewn is determined by the employer.
Some of them.
By the employer.
Okay.
So this is to tell you that this attire could never be used anywhere else. Bankers cannot use jacket to church. They can't use it. Unless, of course, special occasion and you have a special jacket. Other than that, whatever you are asked to buy must be used exclusively for the business, as directed by the GRA itself. That it is a benefit to the employer more than the employee, because it promotes businesses.
Branding.
Branding, right.
So why won't the employers possibly get fashion houses and then ask the employees to go there and pick up those clothes, and that will resolve this whole issue here?
That can be the second stage of the discussion, and that must also be discussed by the employer and the employees.
Okay.
We cannot veto that, yes, fine, everybody must go to one fabric house to go and pick the fabric. No, that cannot, because the attire, the design, the material differ from one institution to the other. So it depends on what corporate image you want to have for your organization. That's why you also want a certain color. You can appreciate the fact that all the companies had their logo. They have their colors to depict exactly what they represent. Sure. So that also informs them of the attire that their employees must use. Certain level of shoes you cannot use in certain banks. You are directed to use a certain, our ladies.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And to look very smart and what have you. So you are directed. You do not have a choice than to respect the direction of either the fabric, the style, and what have you. To the extent that for the men, even the corporate tie, the inner shirt must be white or blue.
Depending on which company.
The company,
okay.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
please.
I get it. So what you're saying is that GRA did not engage you, and as far as you're concerned, I mean, this is a non-starter for you.
It is a non-starter. Let me also ask that the accent that the allowances be taxed since 2019 or effective 2019.
January 2019.
This money had been paid to the employees. They had used the money to buy the fabric sewn and had used for the purposes of the institution and to promote the brand. And you are asking them to, where would they get the money from? So indirectly, they're asking the employers to pay this money for and on behalf of the employees. And that can also have a negative impact on the remunerations of the employees in the ensuing years. And where even the employers get this money to pay. Let me also relate this to the current minimum capital required by Bank of Ghana.
400 million.
400 million.
Yes.
Most of the banks struggle to get this 400 million. And some may not even be posting any good result at the close of the year. So where else would they get these monies from?
We're told by the central bank that, the banking sector is bouncing back, and we are seeing very good performance in terms of the quarterly reports they have issued.
So if it is bouncing back, it's as a result of the contribution from the employees in these banks. So you don't overburden them. They're highly compliant. Every peso paid in these banks are taxed. And how could you allow them to even pay taxes on clothing that has been used to promote business for the company? So we need to engage them more on this matter for GRA to appreciate the fact that they are descending heavily on the banks unnecessarily.
I'm sure that Mishada Usu Amwa probably is watching you, or any of his lieutenants are watching you. What will you tell them?
I'm ever ready to engage them for us to resolve this matter. So if they are listening and watching me, their doors must be opened to us for us to engage them more on this matter and to resolve it. As I said, we are law-abiding citizens and a law-abiding union of that matter. So we will not do anything untoward. We are ready to engage the GRA. We are ready to engage the Association of Bankers. We are ready to engage our management partners to address this matter and have it solved amicably.
Now, let's look at the industry, the unionization in Ghana, and some of the challenges that is facing unionization. We're getting the feeling that most companies are trying to prevent their workers from becoming members of the union. Is it the same sense that you get, looking at the landscape?
I must say that not all employers, the employers that really understand industrial relations practice, employers that really understand that they need to engage, are allowing us to enter into their businesses and to represent the workers. You agree with me that the employers cannot speak to all the employees at the same time. But since they allow them to get unionized, we represent them and represent the mouthpiece for the employees. Now, the government do not have work. The government do not have companies. Private employers had dominated the economy. And for that matter, they have every right to decide as to what to do. That is the challenges that we are facing. However, some of these private employers really appreciate the role of the unions, the sanity that we always try to engage our members to understand that if there are no employer, there cannot be any employee. And for that matter, we need to engage on all matters, ensuring that we promote business. We promote business for the employer so that we can take part in the sharing. So I must say that, yes, fine, it is happening, but it's not the case to say that every employer is disallowing unionization in their companies. Some are doing it, but I'm sure that the companies that are doing better are companies that had allowed unionization.
Would you say 2019 has been a good year?
It's been a very good year.
I see, for you.
Yeah, it's been a very good year for all of us.
All of us?
Yes, in the sense that, yes, we are still around, we are alive, we are strong, but economic-wise, we all know what we are facing as a nation. And if you permit me, you agree with me that as a nation, we need to encourage domestication. If we are eating what we are growing, if we are wearing what we are growing, and have a surplus to export, you realize that we have a lot of surpluses to be used for other things. But if we are importing everything, but without exporting, then you must know that we may not have surplus balances for any other thing. That is why the economy is not growing.
And you play within the banking sector, and I think that you made a very important point. And I look back and I say the banking sector today is highly dominated by foreign banks. This many people have spoken about and have said, look, it doesn't look good for us. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Honestly, with trade liberalization, if I have my minimum capital, I can enter into any business. So Bank of Ghana had set a minimum capital. So these foreign banks, most of them can bring in the foreign currency, which is higher than the cedi. So it is easier for them. And Ghana is a growing economy. Growing economy with inflation, banks make abnormal profits. That is why they are all running here. And we also have that total piece for business. Banks do very much when there is peaks in the economy, when business is flowing, they will be able to lend out and to receive. But where there are chaotic, where there are disturbances, you must know that business will also not flow. That is why business in banking is doing very well in Ghana.
I agree, but I think my question clearly was about the issue of how foreign banks has dominated your space. And I was referring to the statement you made about the fact that we need to make sure we dwell more on domestic and export. So if we're going to be dwelling on more of generating more here and export. Now, if you look at the Nigerian banks in this country, a lot of them, why? When the year ends and they need to pay profit, they repatriate the money back to Nigeria. Likewise, the international banks, the other ones that we have in this country. When can we ever see, let's say, GCB, let's say, ADB, let's say, NIB, or the consolidated bank that was put together also find itself in other African countries and even beyond, so that they can also repatriate profits back to Ghana?
That is up to the banks to decide. Don't forget that GCB Bank used to have a branch in London.
And used to?
Yeah, used
but doesn't.
to. Yes.
When I say used to, I'm saying that used to, but today they don't.
That is it.
That's the problem.
And as a general secretary that represents most of the banks, I know for sure that some of the local banks are deciding to move outside this country and to open branches elsewhere. Now, to come back to the foreign banks in this country, it is allowed.
It is allowed.
It is allowed.
But we're saying what's the plan to push and say, let's have the local guys also move?
Yeah, so that is up to them.
You want to build an economy, it should be export-led.
That is up to them. But don't forget that these foreign banks had come to employ some of Ghanaians. And that is adding up to our gross domestic product. They have employed and they are paying taxes. So if it is
contributing to the depreciation of your local currency, anytime they have to repatriate profits.
That is up to the regulators to decide. It is not for us to talk about, because I know for sure that when you, after close of business, when you generate income, profit, some remain in the country and some can be repatriated because you brought the capital from somewhere. And of course, you have shareholders outside who must be paid dividend. So that is allowed. Under the law, it is allowed. But some must be retained in the country. What the regulators must do in this sense is to ensure that these foreign banks are contributing towards the growth of the economy. They can ask them to do certain things. You don't forget that times past, the government was surcharging the profit that they generate. But it's we, same Ghanaians, who fought against that. And that has been stopped. So if we are giving them the license to operate here, they must be allowed to abide by all our rules and regulations, which of course I know they are doing somehow. But the repatriation of the profit and what have you, that's when we cannot talk about it here. But what we perceived is that they should be allowed to retain a portion of the profit here. which must be directed at a sector that must be known to everybody that what was collected as retained profit from these banks have been channeled through this source.
Okay, Mr. Megasi, an important question that I want to find out from you. What has been your lowest point in 2019? I mean, sitting as the General Secretary for the UNICOF, I mean, what was your lowest point in the year 2019?
The year 2019, because we have dominance in the finance sector.
Yes, sure.
With the recapitalization, we realized that most of the banks struggled to realize or generate the minimum capital.
You lost members.
So we do not lose members, but rather we were not able to negotiate and to realize our expectations in respect of salaries and allowances.
You said something that you did not lose members, because I know that UNICOF is at some of the banks.
Yeah.
And of course, the layoffs that did take place. I mean, this year we've seen one or two banks also lay off some people. The restructuring or the cleanup exercise 2 years ago when it began up to this point, people were made to go home. You lost members.
So to correct...
You lost members,
no,
because those people were made to go home, Mr. Megashi.
So to correct that,
yes,
those banks that were closed,
yes,
that members were sent home, were not hitherto our members.
They were not.
They were not.
I see.
So we took the responsibility as a reasonable union, formidable union, to represent them and to also address this matter. You realize that we managed to get the government, the central bank, the Ministry of Employment, to go into stakeholders meeting and to have exit package paid to all these people. And that credit must come to UNICOF.
I see.
And you must also be told that even with the savings and loans,
yes,
and the microfinances, we had even concluded negotiations.
My very final question to you, 2020, I mean, what's the plan?
2020, we expect to have a very productive and fruitful year. The government, we all know next year is going to be election year. So we're expecting that the government to put all parameters in place. All measures must be in place to ensure that the economy grows. When the economy grows, the workers in the economy grow along. If business is functioning well, workers in those companies also benefit from what they put in. So we are advising all our members to remain very calm, prayerful, that when we enter the year 2020, we collaborate with our employers, we collaborate with the government to ensure that we grow business. That is our hallmark. Once business is grown and we have seen the figures being very good, then we also go in to negotiate a better package for our members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Megashi, for speaking to us. We are grateful. You heard it from the General Secretary of UNICOF, that is Mr. John Senano Amegashi, what his thoughts are as far as this GRA wanting to tax clothing allowance for workers within the banking industry and what his projections are for 2020. Join us again next time when we'll bring you another edition of the Joy Business Special. My name is Norman Akwa Hayford. Enjoy your holidays.